Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with another episode of Runescape Rankings, a series where, I rank things in Old School Runescape. Wow, who'd have thought? Today we will be ranking pets in Old School Runescape. Got one following me here. He looks a little excited. I think that's excitement on his face. As far as how I'll be ranking them, it'll be an average of two different factors. The first one is the overall looks of the pet, how aesthetically pleasing I think the pet is. And then the second factor is kind of like how impressed I am to see someone that has that pet. Obviously, you can get lucky with pets, but I typically find it more impressive when you get a pet that's, a high rate, like hard to get. Maybe it takes a lot of hours. Maybe a boss that's kind of more late game is more impressive. And also, boss pets that are a bit more rare to see are obviously going to be a bit more impressive. But yeah, so I'll just combine those two scores, and that is how I ranked all of these pets. And we will start with the F tier pets and move all the way to A tier. So don't think I hate all pets. I'm just starting with the ones I don't like. So let's go ahead and get to ranking them. So starting off for F tier, just coming out of the gate hot for this list is the Chaos Elemental. I'm going to hurt some feelings in here. I'm just going to say that. And I'm also probably going to hurt a lot of feelings because, like I said, rarity, I find rarity to be a bit more cool. So a lot of people are going to have the common pets, so it might not be good for us, but that's okay. So the Chaos Elemental is, I think, the worst pet by far. It looks like a purple cloud of basically nothingness, not that vibrant of colors, and it's the easiest boss pet to get for the most part. It's 1 in 300 KC. I mean, that's not impressive at all, so I gave it a 1 in both categories, and it's the worst in my opinion. Then next up at the second to last slot is the Chompy. The Chompy pet, honestly, is just something that, again, is like the Chaos Elemental. It's just a gimme pet. So I'm not impressed when I see it. I gave that a 1. And the looks, I think it looks a little better than the Chaos Ellie. It just looks like a dumb little bird with some cool colors. So I gave it a 2. And then the next pet is Kraken. It ranks exactly the same for me with a 2 in looks and a 1 in how impressed I am. It doesn't really look that great. It's kind of a nasty looking color. Doesn't have a whole lot going on with the design of it. Sunk halfway into the ground. Not much there I like. And then in terms of how achievable it is, I feel like a ton of people camp Kraken because it's, easy mage XP, easy money, AFK, good chance at a boss pet with how many kills an hour you can get. It's got everything for it that I'm not going to be impressed if I see it, really. We have the Mole pet. This one personally hurts because I have over 5k KC at Mole and I still don't have the Mole pet, and I don't even like it that much. As far as the looks, I gave it a 3. It's not, it's just a pancake, essentially. It's not anything too cool to look at. And as far as how impressed I am, honestly, I find the boss grind to be pretty enjoyable, and you make a little bit of money. So I'm not that impressed. I gave that a 3. Could be argued it's a bit higher, but Then after the Mole, we have our first skilling pet, which is the Beaver. As far as the looks, I gave it a 4. I mean, the more natural the animals are, the more I'm inclined to just kind of like them a little bit. So I think that's why I gave the Beaver a 4. And as far as how impressed I am with it, I gave that a 2. I feel like with a lot of the skilling pets, it's just, whichever random 1 or 2 you ended up getting on the way to 99, or it's a ton of noobs that just happen to get these things early. I swear I see so many of them, especially with the Beaver, so I'm not that impressed. Then next we have the first of the Dagannoth Kings, and that is the Dagannoth Rex. For the looks, I gave it a 2. It has no color to it. It looks disgusting. I got it as a pet as well, and I was roasting it before I got it because it is the worst looking of all of them. And as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 4. Maybe could be a bit higher, but DKs are just something everyone kind of does for money, and if you end up doing enough of them, you got a good chance, I guess, of getting a pet at some point. Then we have the second skilling pet of the video, and that's a Rock Golem. Again, another pet I have. I just have all the bad pets, to be honest. This Rock Golem, not that great. I mean, can recolor it, but no matter the recolor, it's essentially just one plain color, and the build of the Rock Golem isn't anything, too astounding, so I gave that a 3. And as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 4. Honestly, mining's a tougher skill to train than most, but again, with all these skilling pets, I feel like I just see so many low levels with them, and it kills me, man. Then next up, we have Skatizo, or Skotos, the Skatizo boss pet, which I gave a 4 in terms of look. I like purple, personally kind of a favored color of mine, but the contrast isn't too great. It's not too vibrant, so it wasn't too big on the looks. And as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 3. I feel like people just kind of randomly get it whenever they just passively work up enough Slayer for it. So it doesn't really feel like a hard-hitting goal. Then our last skilling pet for the F tier section, we have the Rocky pet. And then as far as looks, I gave it a 3. I think it's a little worse than the Beaver looking wise, and I don't know, it's not anything special, of course. And as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 4. Again, I don't know. With the skilling pets, unless it's like a crazy hard skill and it takes a lot of XP, then I'm not going to really be too impressed, and thieving isn't that bad. And then rounding out our F tier is the Dag Supreme. For the looks for this, I gave it a 3. It's the middle of my DKs because the green's cool in the sense that it's not the Rex, which has no color variation. It does have a color to it, but it's not really great looking. So gave it a 3, and as far as how impressed, you know, all the Dagonauts, I'm going to go with a 4 just because, like I said earlier, same thing. Not really something I expect people at camp. They just kind of do it for their Slayer task, and eventually they might get lucky. Now moving into the D tier, we have the Heron. I gave this a 5 for looks. At least it's vibrant compared to the other skilling pets we've had. Those weren't. And then for how impressed I am, I gave that a 3. I feel like this is kind of akin to the woodcutting pet in the sense that probably the most noobs are going to have the Heron or the Beaver, so not that impressed. Then Dagonoth Prime is the next up in D tier. Definitely like me Prime the most out of all the Dagonoths, and same thing for how impressed I am. I mean, nothing too crazy. Then next up we have Herbivore, or the Herby pet. As far as looks, I gave it a 3. Honestly, it looks kind of repulsive in my opinion. Maybe I'm just being harsh, but I don't really enjoy the looks of it. But I am decently impressed when people get this. They kind of had to go out of their way, unless it's like Iron Man, I guess. They kind of are just doing that for herbs and might get it passively, but a bit more rare as well and kind of a newer pet. And then also in D tier, we have Vorky. As far as it looks, I actually do like it. Like the light blue definitely looks really nice, and a dragon type pet is cool as well, but not all that impressed. I gave that a 3. This is kind of the first time we're addressing this video, but like meta moneymakers, I'm not all too impressed by seeing that you got a pet there, because in reality, you're there for the money, not the pet, so it doesn't blow my mind. Then we have Kalphite Queen up next. This one, I prefer the somewhat orange Kalphite Queen to the green one, honestly, which is probably why I give it a 5. The green one looks a bit worse in my opinion, so I'd lower it if you were using green, I guess, but personal preference, of course. And then as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 4. Could be a bit higher just because honestly I don't know why people would want to camp KQ for that long other than the pet, but am I being harsh there? A 4 might be too low. It gets bumped up to a 5. I'm moderately impressed, all right? I don't know. It's just Kalphite Queen. Everyone's kind of already required to do a decent bit of them to finish off diaries, so I'm just going to assume most people kind of just luckily got it. Again, obviously that's not the case, and anyone that actually grinds for that pet, like, big shout out to you because that boss sucks. Then we finally get into the bosses that have a 5 rating or higher, so things that I decently enjoy or enjoy fully, and we'll start with Scorpia. As far as the looks, I'm not all too impressed by the Scorpia pet. I don't know, nothing really astounding going on there with the look of it, but as far as how impressed I am, honestly, I gave that a 7. I'm decently impressed just because it might be easier to get than something like KQ that we were just talking about, but if you're willing to sit out there and deal with all that wilderness stuff to go ahead and be able to get a pet, that's pretty impressive. And Scorpia's drops are trash, so big ups. Then next up in D tier, we kind of are getting into a lot of my meta money makers, so we'll just kind of go through them pretty quick, but just understand that's the general reason that these next 5 are in here, and that is Cerberus, which I gave a 6 for looks. As far as real life, I'm kind of a dog person. Like I have a bunch of dogs around my house, so obviously a big fan. So I mean, if I can get them in game form, pretty cool stuff as well. And a nice red is always cool on a boss pet, I think. But how impressed I am is a 4. I mean, Cerberus is kind of meta money making, but you also need a Slayer requirement to get there, so I'm a bit more impressed. And then Hydra has the same exact rankings next. I think that the looks are pretty cool. I think that the variations are nice. You can kind of get whichever one you like. And then as far as how impressed I am, much like Cerberus, it's basically meta money making with Slayers, so I'm not all too impressed. Then next up we have Zora. Honestly, here again with the Metamorphosis, I definitely enjoy the blue version of Zora a lot, so I gave that an 8. Pick your own, whichever one you like, but I like the blue one a lot. But as far as how impressed I am, I'm giving that a 3. It's like a med level to high level boss that you can camp a ton of for money, so at any time, so I'm not freaking out whenever I see them. They're pretty common. Then after that, we have the Theater of Blood pet, Verzik. There's no way to change this pet yet, but maybe that'll come around in the future. As far as looks, I gave it a 5. I mean, at least a good variation in colors, so I do enjoy that. And then as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 6. This is meta money making, so obviously I shouldn't be that impressed, but it is like the latest of late games meta money making. So to be able to have gotten to that point and understand Theater of Blood, I do think is pretty impressive. And then finally, rounding out the D tier bosses is another pretty good money-making method for earlier med-game bossing, and that is Venenatus. As far as it looks, I like the spider pets, especially like the red ones. Sarachnus later, I have ranked a bit higher that I also enjoy. I gave the looks a 7 as far as how much I enjoy that. And then for how impressed I am, I gave it a 4, much along the same lines of previous stuff, just fits right into the money-making niche for those med-level PVMers. So just kind of something you might get along the way. Now moving into C tier, I'll try to speed it up a little bit so we're not here all day, but I could only do so much. Starting it off, we have the Abyssal Sire pet. The looks, I gave it a 5. Again, variation in color is a lot of what I go for, but I do like the red and yellow on this boss pet. And then as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 7 because honestly, anyone that can deal with Sire is getting my respect. I cannot stand that boss at all. Then after that, we have Smallcano. I think the highest rated so far are tied, I guess, with Zora for looks. I give that an 8. I do really like the design of this boss pet, and it is very vibrant looking, so big fan there. But as far as how impressed I am, it's kind of like an easier, like, skilling med-level boss type thing. I don't know. It's pretty accessible for people that are actually hunting boss pets or, at least doing a decent amount of bossing. So I gave it a 4. Not crazily impressed if you end up getting it, but averages out to a 6. I really do enjoy how it looks, though. There are a few skilling pets up in the top few tiers, one of them being the Chinchompa, which is up next. As far as the looks, I gave that a 7. Like the variations, and especially if you get the gold one, very, very nice. And as far as how impressed, I gave that a 6, actually, because Hunter is a bit tough, and so doing that many chins, or however many you have to end up doing, depending on the type that you're doing, is just crazily impressive. I definitely don't feel like I see enough Chinchompas around. Now on to Thermi. As far as it looks, honestly, with the update, that kind of gave it a lot more shine. I put it at a 9. I really do think that the glow they added is pretty huge towards the look of the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil pet. However, as far as how impressed I am, again, I gave it a 4. Could argue it maybe is a little higher because it's not like meta money making, but I just feel like anyone that gets this as a Slayer task is going to do it for a while, mostly hunting the pet. So then after that, we have a Jad, kind of another Slayer type monster in the sense most people are probably doing their task through Jad and then getting the pet that way. As far as the looks, I gave it a 5. It's not really that great. I mean, it's just Jad. We all know what it looks like. It's not that vibrant, but I am pretty impressed. I give that an 8. I mean, anyone that's willing to grind the Fire Cape that long and basically make no money, power to you. Then the Sarachnus pet is up next. As far as looks, I had to one-up Venenatus just because, I don't know, the height of it and the overall kind of strangeness of the Sarachnus pet compared to the Venenatus pet, I feel like is enjoyable. But as far as how impressed I am, not crazily impressed. It's either med levels that got lucky or dudes with sights that just went and camped there, and it's a pretty easy boss to camp. So then next we have the Phoenix. This one ends up getting a 7 in terms of looks. It also has recent recolors, which are honestly pretty sick. And then as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 6, just because so many people just kind of randomly get them early there, and there's a lot of Iron Men that get them on their accounts. There's just so many people that do Winter Tot that it's not that impressive when I see them. However, if you actually hunt the pet post 99, and it's hard as hell to get. So I do respect people that have been there a while, but I just assume the average one I see is from someone that just got crazy lucky early on. Another Wildy pet stepping in here with Callisto. As far as the looks, honestly, the little cub is pretty good looking, I think. Cute little cub. We'll give it an 8. And then as far as how impressed I am, I give it a 5. I mean, just pretty decent money-making method. So much like Venenatus, I feel like people might just be out here for the money. But if you do camp the pet, obviously impressive stuff. Then we have the giant squirrel. As far as looks, I gave it a 6. I mean, I just feel like it's a decent bit better than the other skilling pets we've had so far in terms of looks. And as far as how impressed I am, I mean, anyone that does a ton of agility, or at least enough to deserve this, is impressive by my standards, because I cannot stand agility. So I gave that a 7, and all in all averaging out to 6.5. Then the second to last skilling pet of the episode, and that is the Rift Guardian. In terms of looks, I gave it a 7. I think that the different color variations you can go for are pretty nice. But about as impressed as I am as someone that did agility, honestly. I just feel like runecrafting post 77 is a bit easier, so I gave that a 6, which is a little down from the Giant Squirrel 7 beforehand. And then finally, the Gauntlet pet, Younglif. I gave this a 7 for looks. Honestly, I'm just kind of a sucker for like bright blue. I don't know if it's that crazy, but it's kind of a personal thing. And then as far as how impressed I am, I give that a 6. I mean, it doesn't seem crazy rare to be able to get, but not a lot of people are out there just farming the Gauntlet. So, and then here we are moving into the top 2 tiers. We'll start with the B tier. I have Noon, or I guess the Grotesque Guardian pets. You can change between 2 of them. As far as the looks, I gave them a 6. I actually do kind of like the overall design of the Grotesque Guardians, and the nice little color changes are cool. And as far as how impressed I am, I give that an 8, because I think it's even crazier than Kalphite Queen, crazier than almost anything else, because you basically make the same money from killing regular gargoyles as you do killing the Grotesque Guardians. So anyone willing to kill those for the pet, I mean, geez, impressive. Then we have the first of what is a lot of God Wars dungeon bosses are going to be coming in. I just respect the God Wars dungeon boss pets a lot, because they are like 1 in 5k pets, and they're hard to kill, and you need keys to get in there, or you need KC to get in there. I just have always been one that kind of bows down to them. Might just be me, I guess, but I feel like it's pretty deserved. First one is Bandos, though. I gave this 8.6 for looks. I don't think it looks that crazy. Obviously, it's iconic in the sense that you have a Bandos pet following you, but as far as the looks of Bandos, I mean, And then as far as how impressed I am, gave that an 8 for, like I was saying before, just any God Wars dungeon boss pet deserves pretty high in that regard, but I feel like it is pretty heavily camped by a lot of people, so, you know, just more of them kind of lingering around. Then a little above that is Zammy. As far as Zammy goes, I give that a 7 for looks. I do like the red a bit more than I like the plainness of Bandos, and as far as how impressed I am, I also gave it an 8. Maybe could be a little higher, just because I think Zammy's a bit harder, but I still feel like 8 is a pretty good rating there. Then after that in B tier, we have the Penance Queen, which you can get from Barbarian Assault. For this, I give the looks of it a 6. I don't think that it looks that great. Got the little like antenna eye thing going on. It just looks like a weird insect, man. I'm not that into it. But as far as how impressed I am, I give that a 9. Not a lot of people are going to go here and farm it, so it is something that's pretty impressive in that regard. Obviously, I guess a decent amount of people get it from kind of selling their services maybe, but even then there's not too many people that do that, so it's still a rare pet and fun to see. And then Olmlet is up next. You can get a transmog that you can use on it and kind of change up to different bosses within chambers. If you do that, I think it actually moves up to an A tier, but just given the Olmlet as is, I think it looks like an 8. Again, very vibrant color, and honestly just having the full Olmlet out when you can't really see Olm like that, I feel like is pretty cool. And as far as how impressed I am, I gave that an 8 too. It's just, I mean, pretty damn rare at chambers, so you know, got to tip my hat to anyone I see with that. Even though it is kind of meta money making, it's late game and it's really rare, man. So, and then finally rounding out the B tier is the little Nightmare. As far as it looks, I gave it a 6. It looks pretty creepy, honestly, and it isn't too vibrant. It doesn't have too many colors going on that I'm really enjoying. Just kind of scares me a bit, a lot like the Penance Queen pet. But I am impressed by anyone that gets this. The KC, the 1 in 3.8k, is just disgustingly rare. And again, while it may be good money, just that KC rate is so bad, man, and it is new kind of high level PVM content, so it's a bit harder to access than most. And then moving into A tier, we have the Tangleroot. As far as it looks, I gave it an 8. I think it's definitely the best skilling pet in that regard. Also, as far as how impressed I am by it, honestly, it's kind of a skill you gotta dump some money into. It's an extremely rare pet, so I guess even though people still kind of get it randomly, I gave it a 9 just because it's so rare, and you don't have the same amount of low-level people doing farming for fun as you do people that do winter tot for fun. So I just don't feel like it's as skewed with all those random low levels with the Tangleroot. Then going back out to the wilderness for another A tier spot, and that is Vedion. As far as the looks, I really like Vedion. I think that the orange armored Vedion is so sick, and so I gave that a 9. And then as far as how impressed I am, I gave that an 8 because, again, much like Scorpia, if you can deal with that many PKers, like, hats off to you. It's so bad out there. It is so bad, man. Vedion, I want to camp it, but it's awful. Then this is my only pet in A tier. You know, I'll emphasize that maybe I'm biased here, but I think the Corp pet is absolutely sick. I gave it a 9 in terms of look. I think that Corp's such an iconic boss, and just getting it down in that miniature forms, it's crazy because the thing's disgustingly massive in its natural state, but then you just got a little one following you. It's cool as hell. You could just stomp anyone at will. Now, I will say, I would have given this a 3 if it was the Dark Core. I don't think that the Dark Core looks cool at all, and honestly, I was pumped when you could change it to Corp because I think Corp looks insanely better. And as far as how impressed I am, I give that an 8. It could be a bit higher, but again, I don't want to be biased or anything. I mean, but man, if you actually grind out like a few thousand Corp KC to get that pet, that's nuts, honestly. So could be a bit higher, but I don't necessarily feel that Corp deserves to be at the top of the list, so I'm happy with where it's at. Then next I have 2 God Wars dungeon bosses back to back. The first one being a Saradomin. Gave that a 9. Again, I guess I'm just a sucker for like light blue pets. The design of Sarah is sick. It's kind of like a person too in a sense, and it looks pretty cool. So definitely up there with a 9 on the looks. And as far as how impressed I am, I gave that a 9 too. I mean, I think it's definitely kind of one of the later bosses people will get into as far as God Wars dungeon is concerned. So I just feel like, you know, more elite PVMers are going to be up that valley. Rather than something like Bandos, where I guess just kind of random noobs that are going to masses could get it. And the next tied with Saradomin in that A tier is the Armadyl boss pet, and as far as looks, I gave it an 8, probably around the second best in the God Wars dungeon area. Just a little flying bird, something cool about that, I guess. You don't really have too many of those, and obviously it looks like it could do some damage. And then as far as how impressed I am, I gave it a 10. I feel like Armadyl is one of the harder bosses to kind of learn and get down by yourself in Old School RuneScape, and just the difficulty of getting back into God Wars dungeon, like I said earlier, naturally scales this up a bit more, so I gave that a 10 for how impressed I am, because if you can do 5,000 of those, or at least enough to earn the pet, I'm pretty impressed. And then at number 2, I have the Inferno boss pet. Now you can get this in the form of either the Nibbler or the final boss of the Inferno waves, and the final boss definitely looks a lot better, so I gave that a 9. It's much like the Corp situation. Like if you were only to have the Nibbler, I would have given it a 3, because I don't think the Nibbler looks cool at all, and I'm actually pretty sad that they ever thought that that was a good idea for the pet. So be it. I ended up giving it a 9 in terms of looks, and then as far as how impressed I am, I give that a 10. I mean, anyone that can complete the Inferno in the first place, you know, I'm impressed because I've never done it, and if you can complete it at least enough to be able to get the pet, I mean, obviously, that's pretty sick. And then at number 1, I have the Bloodhound. It's a detective dog. What more do I need to say? People love dogs. People love dogs dressed up as things. It's a detective dog. I gave that a 10 in terms of look. I think it just looks like a good boy, you know? What can I say? I just want to pet it. Tell him that he's good and tell him to sniff out more clues. I'm a sucker for it, so I gave it a 10. And as far as how impressed I am, if you end up getting that, obviously some people are insanely lucky, but it's a ton of masters, man. And after seeing how Casey went over like 5K drive for it, I mean, Jesus, if anyone goes dry for this Bloodhound pet, I'd feel so bad for him. And for that reason, I gave it a 10 as far as how impressed I am. Also, I guess, in regards to the Inferno, you could get that as a Slayer task, so you're kind of doing that for like pretty good meta Slayer XP. With the Bloodhound, I mean, while Master Clues may be fun, you're not really making that much money doing them. Definitely not enough to pay back if you're buying implings and doing that type of stuff. So I definitely think that the Bloodhound is the best pet, and obviously it's a bit close, but I had a good time ranking all these bosses, and hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it. And so yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Anything you want to tell me, let me know in a comment down below. Obviously we're going to have some differences. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you guys want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and see you.